I had a chat with somebody else on an AI topic. We were talking about the hallucinations that AI have. At some stage in textbooks, they're going to be people with 6 fingers
So
because that's what the AI has seen, is generated so many of these incorrect images. It's going to start feeding off that and see so many of them. And this is going to be a huge problem going in the future.
So that's a great example. That was a much bigger issue even like 6 months ago in the image generation models, and how they actually fixed that. So it's better now. So there's 5 fingers on a hand like there should be. What they did, they went into the game systems like Unity and they modeled hands, and they took thousands and thousands of pictures of the hands from all the different angles and put them in the data set. And so now the AI knows how to make hands properly and, repetition. So
that's going to get better and better.
Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhne.
I hope you've got your bingo cards ready, because we're going to be talking about AI today, so you can check that off the list. We've got Michael Buckbee with us today, and Michael has worked at the intersection of marketing and technology for almost 2 decades, and you can see the toll it has taken on him. Past clients include the US Navy, Fortune 100 companies, YC startups, presidential candidates, we'll chat about that, federal agencies, rock bands, and foreign governments. Today, he's the co-founder of Knowatoa, a service that tracks brand, rank, and sentiment within AI search services like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and our nemesis, Google Gemini. So, Michael, welcome.
thank you so much for having me here. So I love the introduction.
I really do hate Google Gemini or Gemini. It's the worst. And I switched it off, and they keep these prompts on my phone and everywhere. So I'm slowly warming to them, but it's a real pain in the butt.
It's changing a lot. I think you're sadly out of luck. I think Google is only going to push Gemini more and more this year. This isn't me speculating. These are the words they keep saying. They're like, we're going to push Gemini more and more this year, that there's going to be an AI mode in search, right alongside your traditional search. AI overviews 2.0, all sorts of changes that we need to think about.
So they're forcing it down our throat. And this might be something that sort of helps break the monopoly that Google has on search, obviously, because right now that's the default. And talking about Google, I mean, you talk about Google and the rise of AI, and they're on an all-out mission to make their core search product obsolete before their competitors can. Maybe let's just talk about that a little bit, and then we'll go into how this ties into branding and digital marketing. Why is Google trying to put itself out of business?
I think, and this is just my own personal speculation, I think they're terrified. I think they genuinely are terrified. I'm a software developer. I think it is really hard to overstate how much software development has changed in the last year and a half, solely from the AI tooling. Google's a very technical organization. They've said that 25% of the code that was written in their organization at the end of last year was written by AI. I think they're seeing that this is a chance, a crack in their armor, and that they were caught a little bit flat-footed by this. I have a business background as well. I have a business degree, and someone who if you go to business school, Clayton Christensen is someone who comes up with the innovator's dilemma. And, I think that's really where Google is stuck right now, is that in a lot of ways they did the research and underpinnings for AI without realizing, oh gosh, this could destroy our core search product.
Yeah. And this is where all sorts of smaller competitors come up and eat these folks' lunch overnight. But luckily, they still make a ton of money through advertising spend. But this is obviously going to change somewhat with people avoiding going directly to Google and now going to search engines like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and their very own Gemini. So we can talk about Google and the downfall of Google a little bit later, but a really good question that you posed to me was, which was why brands matter a lot more in AI than traditional search. And I want to unpack that a little bit, because I don't think a lot of folks out there know how to optimize for AI, do they?
We are all learning. So I think I'm just half step ahead of everyone else, but we're all figuring this out because the services are changing. So we have to be nimble to keep up. So a frustration I have with a lot of marketing advice is that it's very general. And so I'm going to try to be real specific about this. Where I think about brand, I think about 3 distinct categories: brand sentiment, brand statements, and brand knowledge. And It's the intersection of those three things that really convey and let you rank in AI search in a way that's separate from traditional search. With respect to brand sentiment, something I ask people to do, and you may not be familiar with this company, but Wells Fargo, they're a very large financial bank in the United States, and they had some horrific instances of fraud that they perpetrated on their customers and prospects. And now, if you go into ChatGPT, you cannot mention them without ChatGPT bringing that up. And that is not the case with traditional search. If you type in Wells Fargo into Google, it's essentially a navigational search. They think the search intent is, I would like to go to the Wells Fargo site and log in and check my balance or whatever. But if you ask ChatGPT, it's like, here's all the stuff I know about them. Here's my summary, one of which is before you do any business with them, you should really look at their ethics and, that's not a sterling recommendation. So brand sentiment matters in that way and is just different.
I suppose the difference there as well is that Google is going to be looking at all of the social connections that this business has. So it's backlinks, it's going to be activities on Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, etc. It can take all of that information and give perhaps a more rounded picture, like you said, as opposed to ChatGPT, which might just take the latest couple of articles or, the highest ranking articles. You talk about sentiment. I went and had a look at my company, Wunderbrand, and I'll just share the screen quickly, what this looked like for me. And I said, what can you tell me about the company Wunderbrand? And it gave me a really nice little overview, including a link, services, global presence, clients, blah, 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 and all links to the website. And then a couple of sources. I went to Perplexity, slightly different picture, slightly more summarized, but way more references than what we had on ChatGPT. And I've got the paid for ChatGPT version as well. And this is quite interesting. Again, the difference between the two platforms, way more link driven in Perplexity. And I believe it's Bezos is involved in this somehow.
He's also involved quite closely with Anthropic, which drives Claude, which is one of the other large competitors.
Now, you've got something called Knowatoa, which is your startup that you co-founded. Interesting questions here. How is Gemini, etc., serving up your competitors? And you've got quite a lot of cool services here. And this is a brand new service industry. Nobody's done this before, right?
Yeah. Like I said, we're all figuring this out. This really came about from I was involved in a previous startup and I was talking to some other SaaS founders, and this was, a year ago. And at the time, we're just joking around like, did exactly what you did. Put my company name into ChatGPT, got some results back, and some of them were wrong. Looking at competitors, there were some very minor competitors that were outranking us, that were being recommended. And what I started to do was I just couldn't get it out of my head. So I sat down and I wrote a script just on my Mac that called against the OpenAI API and then made a spreadsheet. I did this for myself and I did this for my SaaS founder friends. And then that was just an interesting sort of thing, but it wasn't very compelling. And then what started to happen is my friends who were running businesses that were doing post-purchase surveys, just that like little email you get like, hey, how'd you hear about us? They got back in touch with me and said, Mike, we keep hearing people finding us from ChatGPT. Can I get that spreadsheet again? And so I started, giving it every week, and then eventually got in with some SEO agencies, and they of course have dozens of sites. And so spreadsheets are unwieldy. So we made it a website and then slowly transformed this into a proper software as a service company that people can self-sign up for and use and configure their own sites.
Imagine you find a problem in terms of your ranking or the information that is displayed on ChatGPT. You mentioned Wells Fargo. What is the next step? How do we fix that? How do we avoid people seeing that we are the worst people in the world?
Well, I think step one is don't do massive fraud that, you get fined billions of dollars for.
Other than that, come on, everyone's got to do a little bit of fraud.
Agree to disagree. But I talked about brand sentiment. The other things to talk about, I think, are brand information content. You said, hey, ChatGPT lists out my services. I don't know if that's 100% how you would frame the services that you provide. It might be off. It might be slightly older. So I think there's a real need for brand information content. Something that was said to me early on in our customer interviews we did was that it was a business owner, and they said, ChatGPT is now our most popular and least well-trained representative of the company. That every day people are asking it questions like, hey, do we do business in Norway? Are we SOC 2 certified? Are you HIPAA? Like, these are all important business questions before I can buy from you. And if ChatGPT is telling them, no, we don't do business there when you do, like you're never going to know about that. So there's a real important.
On that point, it's important to note, just to explain that a little bit, on Google, etc., and your website, you can find out where calls are coming from or where people are finding your information. With ChatGPT, is that shown somehow on SEO platforms or on your website that ChatGPT is crawling your website or crawling the internet and getting the right pages? Okay.
So it's a mix. So certainly ChatGPT is trying to very aggressively crawl your site. And right now there's about 25 different major crawlers, bots, that are trying to access information on your site to then update their services. Perplexity has a bot. Google actually has multiple bots beyond their standard one. They have a Google extended one that is specifically for drawing information into Gemini. And so part of this is making sure you're not blocking those. A lot of sites, I think it's still in like the high 40s was the last number I saw of the most popular websites are still blocking one or more of the major crawlers. And at some level, you just want the basic information out there as far as like, what are your hours? If you update that on your site and you're blocking it, how would it ever get into Perplexity? So that's part of it. And then the other piece you asked about was, how do you change this? And I think you change this through a lot of brand statement content. So we talked about sentiment, we talked about knowledge, and now we're talking about statement. And the statement content is that where we want to compete is not so much in the old style of things. The old style content marketing play was, we're going to write this like really like the ultimate guide education kind of piece around a topic. We're going to get people in, maybe we'll get their email, they'll get on our newsletter, and they'll go through the search and buyer's journey. And instead, what's happening is all of that is being sucked into ChatGPT. All of that is being provided by an AI overview. You don't see any attribution for it. And what you get is just the last piece of it when they either come to your site or they do a navigational search in Google. And the queries that you need to really win now are the ones like, what is the best branding agency? What is the best tracking software? What is the top, lawyer in Chicago? Like those commercial queries are suddenly ratcheting way, way up because it's the only chance you get to interact with these prospects.
Yeah, and that's such a tough one because we're still beholden to Google for a lot of that. Because if we look at your business profile or your business page, that's where all those details, all the updated telephone numbers, etc. And something we've done in our SEO course is where we make sure that if you've got X address and phone number on your business profile, it's got to be identically written on your website and on any other place that your business is found. Otherwise, the systems just sort of pick whichever one thing is most useful. So we're still going to be very reliant on traditional internet or search engines to drive the correct information through to these AI platforms. Do you think there's going to come a stage where people just say, why do I need to be on Google, for example? Can't I just put this information directly into ChatGPT? Or do you think there's always going to be this sort of dual system where everything is just going to be taken from your website, which is by Google and Perplexity, etc.?
I think
I'm asking hypotheticals.
Well, where I was going was, I think the system we've had for the last 2 decades of you type some keywords in and you get 10 links and then you choose those links out of that. And you do this whole dance of like, I'm trying to do a task and then I abstract that out into a query. I then search for it. I look at the top 3 articles. I put those together, basically a summary in my own mind, pulling bits of it out. And then, I think that is going away. I think it's going away on both sides of this. Already with AI overviews, it's kind of doing the thing where it looks at all the sites and all the information for you and presents a summary. And on the query side, we're seeing more and more things, they all named deep learning, deep research. And those systems that you can try out now, like Google has one literally called Deep Research in Google Labs. you type a query in, it's more like a task than it is just a question. And it will go out and find 70 websites, pull all the information in, extract the data out, put it into a tab for you and say, like, just click this and we'll open up a Google sheet of it. And that's something really interesting where I think we're going beyond search intent, which is a big thing SEOs talk about. Like, what is it people searching for? And we need to be thinking more about like task intent. What is it they're trying to accomplish? Trying to insert ourselves in with tools and better information and things that are more specific to us. Again, going back to brand.
I'd love to see how you overlay that on a customer journey. So you've just spoken about how this is sort of changing the way marketers or branders need to think. I can see you creating a new sort of customer journey layer, which is, okay, the GPT layer of how people are going to search for your information. Just on a side topic, everything is going AI in terms of being able to get very good information very quickly from these sites. I think one way that Google and perhaps Meta are going to sort of take their next step is going away from text and more to visual. And this is where the AR and virtual reality comes in, because we don't want to type. This is quite old-fashioned still. We're thinking like when Henry Ford was asked about his cars, and he said, well, what was it now? If I asked people what they wanted, they'd ask for a faster horse. That's literally what's happening right now in the AI field. And I think where Google and Meta, maybe we're a bit early, but are going to get there, is we're going to be wearing our goggles and we're going to have a voice prompt, and up will come our query right in front of us without having to go through all of these steps. The problem is, where do you put advertising in there? Is the whole advertising process going to change from visual ads in terms of, because that's where they make their money on the front of the page, to, other ways? If I can ask sort of your vision for advertising for the future and where marketers need to start thinking, what do you think the options are going to be in this new sort of AI dominated age?
There's a term with AI models and everything, which is multimodal, which means that it can take text or it can take images. And I think from a user interface perspective, audio is a really good input mechanism. I'm not sure it's such a great output mechanism. So an example of this, like you mentioned, audio inputs. Another one is Google has a feature called like circle to search, which is like you hold your phone up, it takes a picture, and then like you circle the shoe in it. And it's like, oh, well, that's a Nike Air Jordan, whatever. And you want to buy one for $200. That is a textual interface to these same sort of systems. You can certainly take a picture right now with your ChatGPT app and just hit upload, and it'll just explain what's in the picture. And I think that's the beginning of it. With the audio systems, I think it's still going to be, for large part, multimodal. Meta, you mentioned, they have Meta glasses, augmented reality glasses that work exactly. You ask, hey, Meta, and then it shows, a result, or maybe also, reads it to you.
I think, yeah, you're talking about Google Lens. I use that. That's one of the Google functions that I use probably the most.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. So let's have a look back over here at your question. So you touched on this a little bit, and the question is where to shift your content marketing efforts to win in the AI search. Now, I know you come from a security background, not a security guard, but a internet security and cybersecurity background. But in terms of this content shift, what kind of elements do we need to keep in mind? You mentioned you can stick an image into ChatGPT and it'll tell you what it is, and we've got Google Lens. But with Perplexity and ChatGPT, it's not necessarily their primary function. It's not what they're known for. In terms of content marketing, are we still talking text? Or are we talking how can we use visuals as well?
I think we're still talking text for the most part, though certainly, there's a repurposing of that. Before I started my own companies, I was the director of demand generation for a large public cybersecurity company for a long time, and over their organic search efforts. And part of that was a lot of the educational content. And like we said, starting to break into more like brand statement content and other pieces. The other aspect of this is like what you're saying, which is, imagine you have, hey, here's the reason why we're the top, agency. Here's the reasons why we're the top, software in a certain sector. That a very important thing to do is to worry about distribution in a way it wasn't before, because the ranking factors for AI search are a lot more based on repetition than they are on the things that have been built up over time in traditional search of like domain authority and site authority and backlinks. So,
When you talk about repetition, what do you mean?
So the AI models decide in quotes, what is the meaning of something based upon, similarity in how many times they've heard it. I think you actually brought up a great example earlier, which is that, you want to have your name be the same. You want to have your phone number be the same, or else systems get confused. It's that way down to like, what's the definition of an apple? Like, is it a computer company? Is it a fruit? It's both. And so it's only through the association and the repetition of all of these terms that you're able to influence the AI search engines. A word we haven't used so far in this discussion is hallucination. AIs hallucinate things. And the two reasons they hallucinate things is either they don't have any information about it, so they sort of just fill in the gaps between the information they do have. That failure modality is something we as marketers can deal with, which is like, oh, you don't have the hours to my business? We can provide that, pull it off our site. It'll be in the model. The other hallucination failure mode is the reasoning failure modes where, it's almost like a riddle and the AI gets confused and it can't deal with it. And that's something for the AI makers. That's not something we can influence. But for the most part, the type 1 issues are easily solvable just by doing a better job at marketing promotion.
I had a chat with somebody else on an AI topic, and I was saying, we were talking about the hallucinations that AI have. At some stage in textbooks, they're going to be people with 6 fingers. Because that's what the AI has seen, is generated so many of these incorrect images. It's going to start feeding off that and see so many of them. And this is going to be a huge problem going in the future.
So that's a great example. That was a much bigger issue even like 6 months ago in the image generation models, and how they actually fixed that. So it's better now. So there's 5 fingers on a hand like there should be. What they did, they went into the game systems like Unity, and they modeled hands, and they took thousands and thousands of pictures of the hands from all the different angles and put them in the data set. And so now the AI knows how to make hands properly and, repetition. So
yeah, so that's going to get better and better. I love that example. You're in the startup space. It's a really tough space. And you said you started this company. It started out as a joke almost. And now it's a fully fledged business. So who's laughing now? And obviously with these businesses, the barrier to entry is not as high as it should be. You luckily have a background, and your team probably have a background in coding. And so you've got some of the prerequisites. But how tough is this space really?
The startup space or the AI space?
Okay, well, let's start. We're going to talk startup space right now. So you have got this great idea. Tell me about some of the responses you've got from potential investors, if you can, when you've sold this idea to them, and maybe more importantly, concerns they've pushed back to you. That might be interesting.
Sure. So we're not funded. So I haven't really approached investors. I've done fairly well with my other businesses. So this is self-funded at this point. I'm my own angel investor. And so I think a better spot, and I would, if people are listening and they're trying to figure out what to do, is I have done many, many customer interviews, which is trying to figure out, is this worthwhile? What are the pain points? What to do? I have literally spoken to several hundred SEO search practitioners in the last year at conferences and on calls. I'll talk to anybody just to get more information about, what it is they're doing. But there's a huge variety in those answers, and I feel like none of it is clear cut. I have talked to marketer people, and this is maybe more the middle of last year. And I said like, oh yeah, people are kind of using ChatGPT as a search engine. There are people that were literally offended by that. They're like, I can't imagine someone using this in a professional setting and actually relying on this information. That's one segment. And, you can't be discouraged with that. And that's why you talk to so many people. A weird thing that happened out of all those interviews was so many of the SEO people I spoke with said, I love ChatGPT. I love it. I use it all day, every day. I don't think it's really going to change things for us as a business. Then talk to the next person. They're like, I love it. I don't really think it's going to change things. And by about the 10th person, you're like, is there a psychosis going on? Like, is everyone okay? And I don't know how to square that, but that is one of our qualifying questions we ask people is, do you personally use these AI tools? And at this point, everybody says yes. Like nobody is saying no. They're at least aware of them and they use them, some mostly in generative spaces, but it's a delight, honestly, that it's such a changing space. I think that just breeds opportunity, and it's very exciting for that.
So in terms of keeping your motivation going for this, what is waking up in the morning in terms of this particular business? Is this a side hustle business that might make a couple of bucks that is going to generate other business for you? Or is this something that you see, hey, wait a minute, this could be a big agency and could do some really big things? What is your motivation in the morning?
Well, my vision for this, and I have a co-founder, our vision for this is that it's a SaaS business. Like, I don't really enjoy consulting as much as I like talking to people. I'm a software developer. I like to make a tool, make it once and see 1,000 people use it. That is just very satisfying to me at sort of a craftsmanship level. I find that incredibly motivating. And I do find it very motivating to talk to people. There's a terrible danger as software developers who want to be entrepreneurs to just go off and like write code for 6 months and not talk to anybody. It's a horrible idea and one I have fallen into too many times. And yeah, so I'm very active on social, and there's a term vanity metrics that comes up a lot, which is like, oh, well, you have a lot of followers, but do you have a lot of business? And I've always pushed back a little bit on that, just in that those vanity metrics are, I think, what keeps you going in the early days before you have customers, before you have anything else, just to get feedback and to be like, oh, maybe I am on the right track. And at least some small set of people find this interesting and valuable.
All of the best marketers in the world and the best companies in the world that have been successful talk to their customers. So I think you're definitely doing the right thing. And I think it's something, if people can take something out of this call as well, is the importance of talking to your customers and getting this initial feedback. You don't necessarily have to listen to them. Like you've said, some of them like, what, ¿qué pasa? Or ¿qué pasó? And that could sometimes give you extra motivation that, wow, these people really don't know what is this tsunami is behind you and you're just going to be whacked. So very, very exciting. If I can ask one last question here.
Absolutely.
On this particular subject. A genie had to magically appear in front of you right now and say, who is your ideal client who should be buying your SaaS product? Who would that be?
I think we're most useful right now to search marketing agencies that are working with companies that really care about brand. So that's either, SaaS businesses, or it's like individual, smaller, like e-commerce retailers or services like that. It's a little less, I think, e-commerce based and a little less local SEO based right now, just because of where the search services are at. Like, there's fewer people going to ChatGPT to be like, hey, figure out the best price for this particular ski boot. But there's a lot of people going for like, hey, what are the best ski resorts in Vermont? Like, those are two different type of questions. And one just has more traction and more use right now.
Do you know what I haven't seen actually is a service that pulls in responses from ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity.ai. Have you seen anything like that?
It like pulls them in and compares them?
Yeah, that might be interesting. So I can't let you go without talking about you've worked with presidential candidates and federal agencies. They're in a bit of trouble at the moment. But
yeah,
a little bit about your background in this. Is this in the cybersecurity space?
Yeah. So my previous cybersecurity applications were within a marketplace. Salesforce, the very large company, they had purchased a web application, a deployment platform called Heroku, and it had a marketplace. And this functions very similar to something like the Apple App Store, where you place your products in it. And then instead of people giving you a credit card directly, Apple bills them and then they take a cut and then give you the rest. It's like that sort of at the enterprise level. And so through there, they had, Salesforce is obviously a huge, massive company with thousands and thousands of customers. And I was able to, they were able to bring people to me that I was then able to help with the security of their web applications in that marketplace. And again, as, someone who's like starting out and trying to do these things, the ability to have that partnership was amazing. And, a huge key to my earlier successes. So something I still think about, which is, there's a saying like first time entrepreneurs think about product and second time entrepreneurs think about distribution. And so I just think about distribution. Who can I partner with? Who can I work with? Like, who can I talk to?
You've given us some really good nuggets of advice and some food for thought, and especially just going and talking to your customers. I want to end off with where folks can find some information. If they want to check what their brand looks like online on these AI platforms, where can I send them?
Knowatoa.com, Knowata.com. And there's no credit card to sign up. Like you can just try it out and it will give you the top results from ChatGPT. And then if you want, to ask more questions or you want to see what you look like in the other AI search services, you can upgrade. But happy to help. And also, I'll just give my email. If people want to get in touch, I really am willing to speak to just about anybody. And part of that is so many people have been generous to me over time and given me the time that it just feels kind of like paying that back. So my email is...
Before you give the email address, I must just let you know that on YouTube, they ask, will you allow ChatGPT, Perplexity, and these AIs to scrape your video, audio, etc.? And I did say yes. So this is going to be available everywhere.
Awesome. Yeah. It's Mike@Knowatoa.com. It's probably could guess that, but yeah.
Yeah. From a security specialist, that's a real bad option, I guess.
That's okay.
Well, Michael, thanks so much for chatting. This has been really interesting. And I know that this industry is going to grow at quite a rapid pace. So I look forward to seeing your progress and hopefully we can get you back on the show again in a couple of months to see how things are going.
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate this. And it was just a delight.
Awesome. Cheers, Michael.
Cheers.
I really do appreciate your comments. So why not go and watch this live on YouTube or go to my website, kuhne.no. That's KUHNE.no for more information.